Why would I ever waste my life on him? Pathetic nobody. Her words cracked through the night, loud enough for everyone to hear. He stood frozen, fists clenched, humiliation burning hotter than the summer air. Her friends smirked, eyes gleaming with spite, as if his very presence was an insult. Years rolled by. Now the same man climbs the Capitol steps, cameras flashing like storms. In minutes, the oath of the presidency will silence every cruel laugh. Tell us in the comments, what would you feel watching someone you once mocked rise beyond your wildest reach? Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. Malik never chased attention. He grew up in a quiet corner of Georgia, the son of a teacher and a postal worker who taught him the value of hard work and dignity. Early mornings found him running along dusty back roads, a worn notebook tucked under his arm, jotting down dreams bigger than his small town could hold. He loved history, the kind of child who studied speeches instead of sports scores, believing that words could change the world. In college, he carried that same quiet confidence. Books instead of parties, late-night study sessions instead of loud bars. That's where he met Claire. She was magnetic. Bright laugh, sharp mind, from a family that looked down on his background and his skin. Malik didn't see the warnings at first. He only saw someone who challenged his thoughts and made him believe love could rise above everything. But whispers followed them. Claire's friends rolled their eyes, muttered cruel remarks when they thought he couldn't hear. He brushed it off, certain that patience and kindness could outlast prejudice. For a while, it seemed to work. Until the night it all collapsed, when she humiliated him in front of everyone, a single moment of rejection that seared itself into his memory. Malik left quietly, carrying the weight of that night like a hidden scar. He buried himself in service, community work, law school, local politics. The same people who once dismissed him would later chant his name. What would you do if someone tried to crush your spirit in front of the world? Would you break or build something greater? He never spoke of that night again, but the memory drove him like a relentless engine. Malik poured every ounce of energy into proving, if only to himself, that his worth wasn't decided by cruel words. Law school led to late nights in community centers, listening to families left out of the American promise. City council turned into state senate, then a surprise run for governor. Each step brought new challenges, sharper attacks, and whispers that a black man couldn't climb higher. Behind the scenes, he worked twice as hard. He knocked on doors in pouring rain, held town halls in empty gyms, and faced down donors who doubted his vision. For every handshake, there was a cold shoulder. For every victory, a reminder of the barriers stacked against him. Yet his voice carried hope. People began to believe, not just in him, but in themselves. News stations called him a long shot when he announced his bid for president. Commentators smirked. Old classmates from his small hometown barely recognized the man on their screens. And somewhere, Claire watched the campaign unfold, her name never leaving his lips, though the past lingered in his mind like a shadow. The debates grew fierce. His opponents questioned his experience, his ideas, even his identity. Not ready, they said. Not electable. But Malik never flinched. Each insult became fuel. Crowds swelled. States turned blue that had never dreamed of it. Then came election night. As the final votes rolled in, a hush fell over the country. Malik stood at the center of a storm, every step echoing the same quiet vow he'd made years ago: to rise, no matter who tried to break him. Would you have kept fighting after such a public wound, or walked away forever? The victory speech was only the beginning. Winning an election is one thing, enduring the storm that follows is another. Malik faced a tide of hostility sharper than anything before. Political rivals dug through his past, twisting facts into weapons. Anonymous threats filled his mailbox. Online, strangers hurled words meant to cut as deep as knives, yet he kept moving. Every morning before dawn, he read letters from children who saw themselves in him. Every night, he studied policies to protect the same families who once thought no one in power cared. His team said he barely slept. He smiled through exhaustion, driven by something bigger than ambition, a promise to prove that dignity could outlast hatred. The campaign trail grew brutal. Security tightened. Rallies were interrupted by jeers and banners dripping with old prejudice. He answered every taunt with calm resolve, but inside, the memories of that humiliating night flickered. He heard echoes of laughter, the sting of rejection, and the voice that once told him he would never matter. Then came the final debate. Millions watched. His opponent sneered, questioning his intelligence, dismissing his plans, even mocking the way he spoke. The moderator struggled to keep control. Malik stood steady, every insult fueling the quiet fire in his chest. He spoke of unity, of possibility, of a country that could rise above hate. By the end, the crowd was on its feet. Election day turned into a marathon of tension. Hour after hour, numbers shifted, headlines flashed, and the nation held its breath. When the final call came, the result was undeniable. Malik had won. But the night was not just about politics. As he stepped onto the stage, he saw a face in the crowd, familiar, pale in the camera lights. Claire, her eyes wide, her hands trembling. After all the years, all the pain, she was there to witness the moment she once swore would never come. What do you think she felt in that instant, as the man she'd ridiculed claimed the highest office in the land? The roar of the crowd rolled like thunder over the Capitol steps. Flags snapped in the icy wind. Malik stood tall, the oath heavy with history as he repeated each word with steady resolve. Cameras flashed, immortalizing every heartbeat. Somewhere beyond the velvet ropes, Claire watched. The years had carved lines into her face, but the memory of her cruel words must have been louder than any applause. She clutched the railing as his voice echoed across the nation, a voice she once dismissed as insignificant. Reporters caught her silent tears, though few knew the story behind them. To them, she was just another stranger in the sea of witnesses. But Malik knew. Without a glance, he felt her presence. Not with bitterness, but with a quiet recognition of the journey that had brought them both to this moment. When the oath ended, a hush settled before the explosion of cheers. The man once humiliated now stood as President of the United States. It was more than a personal victory. It was a statement to every person ever told they were less because of the color of their skin. Claire turned away, the weight of regret pressing heavier than the cold air. The cheers behind her felt distant, muffled by the roar of memories she wished she could forget. Faces from years ago flickered in her mind, her friends laughing at the cruel joke she started, the way Malik's eyes had hardened as he walked away that night. No apology could rewrite the past. No words could undo the pain she had caused. She lingered near the edge of the crowd, the sound of the inauguration swelling like a rising tide. Around her, strangers wept with joy, holding signs of hope and progress. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, wide-eyed as history unfolded before them. Claire felt the sharp contrast between their pride and her own quiet shame. She wanted to disappear, yet something held her there. Perhaps the need to witness the man she had once belittled become the embodiment of everything she thought impossible. Malik, meanwhile, stood unshaken at the podium. The cold wind tugged at his coat, but his voice carried warmth and strength as he spoke of unity, of resilience, of a nation capable of growth. Cameras flashed, capturing a leader who had faced every barrier and still climbed higher. He did not search the crowd for familiar faces. He did not need validation or revenge. His life's work was never about proving her wrong. It was about proving possibility right, for every child watching, for every dreamer doubted, for every voice silenced by prejudice. As his words echoed across the mall, Claire felt a sting of realization. The true measure of a person is never set by the cruelty of others. It is forged in quiet determination, in unshakable dignity. Malik had carried himself beyond the reach of her old mockery, turning pain into purpose and purpose into power. The ceremony ended with thunderous applause that shook the cold winter sky. Claire wiped her tears, knowing she would carry the memory of this day for the rest of her life, a reminder of how small cruelty is when faced with true greatness. How many more stories like Malik's will it take before the world stops measuring worth by race or prejudice? How many more children must fight twice as hard to be seen as equal? Show some love with a like and subscribe to stay inspired.